Here we are in the orchard on the first Saturday of August. Quite an emotional week. Sheila and I celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary last week, and yesterday our oldest daughter Sarah was 30. So it's been quite an emotional week. Anyway, I'm just returning to an old theme, fruit thinning and broken branches. I'll try to keep this video short. This year we've been minimally managing the trees, for reasons I've already discussed. Essentially, other stuff to do. We've pulled out the farmers markets. These are the red pippin, and these were thinned, and they were thinned at the right sort of time, and they're showing quite widely spaced, well-sized apples, which is good. Next to them, now bear in mind there used to be a row down here. We pulled that row out because we thought they were too close together. We're producing more apples than we need. It was difficult to manage them, difficult to get around them with the mower. So we took out alternate rows. Very hard work, and it was painful to do it. But since then, it's been easier to manage the orchard, and we have had significantly less fungal disease. Significantly less fungal disease, because the trees have much more air and light. This is Spartan. It's my favourite North American apple variety. These always need thinning, but I don't think these have been thinned quite enough. Again, I've had to do it in between other things. I've been away a lot this year. I've been in the Belfast, London, Jersey, teaching, earning good money, doing what I do, skin cancer diagnosis, education, which I enjoy, which I feel satisfaction from, and which earns my money. So we've had to neglect the orchard a bit. I haven't done as much thinning as I should have done. This variety always needs thinning, and it generally needs a bit of spray against scab. Here we are, here's some scab there and some scab. This is a relatively minimal amount of scab, and this won't affect the eating quality of the fruit. But if you get a lot of scab and you get it early, it can destroy the whole crop. If you get bad scab on the leaves, then the photosynthesis, the apple's energy plant and solar panel, if you like, there's a bit of scab there on that leaf, and here's some scab. A leaf is a very marvellous thing. It's a solar panel, and it's a chemical plant all at once. All of the, frankly, everything we eat comes from leaves. Animals, if we eat meat, they grow on vegetables which grew from leaves. The leaf is an amazing thing. So if your leaf gets all covered in fungus, then it won't work very well, and you won't get a good crop. This year we haven't, although we didn't spray, we haven't had much, and I think that's because the trees are now much more widely spaced than they were. So that is a lesson. I think if you are going to not use fungicides, space your trees widely and keep them very open pruned. That helps, doesn't eliminate the issue. You can see this apple is growing in an abnormal shape because this part is affected by scab. Can you see there's a few little splits there in the centre of the picture, and again in the centre of the picture there are some splits because the apple is growing. The normal clean healthy skin of the apple is growing, but the diseased scab, it's not growing so well, so it splits. Bacteria get in, fungi get in, and the whole thing rots, and obviously this is completely unsaleable, and it wouldn't store either. Anyway, that's an aside, as I always like to mention what's actually happening rather than just deliver a lecture. This is Orleans Runette, and these are having a fantastic crop. Long-term followers will know this is one of my favourite apples. It's a very popular apple in France, where they cook with it, and it goes into salads and pork charcuterie dishes and tarts and all sorts, and it's a beautiful apple. And I was thinning it last week. You can see here, I was out here last week doing some thinning, and just look, I twisted all of these fruit off. Is there or is there not a lot of fruit on the ground? Okay, but looking up at the tree, there's still a lot of fruit in the tree. It's very widely spaced now because I thinned it. I thinned it pretty fast. I didn't quite get all the way through. Now, if I'd thinned this earlier, the weight of fruit that's on the ground, and it is a very considerable weight, would be in the tree. So if I'd thinned this earlier, these apples would be bigger than they are now on the 6th of August. So anyway, just to mention, thinning should be done probably May, and maybe again in late June. This is interesting. There's a clump, a cluster of 5 apples. Now you should prune this with, if you can thin this, you need 2 hands really. You need to hold this steady and then twist 1 or 2 of these out. Now I've twisted that out, I'm going to lever that off, see what I've done, and I'm going to lever that one off as well, and leave just 2. In fact, I'm going to leave just 1. Okay, that's pretty radical, isn't it? Just 1 out of 5. However, this branch is carrying a few, and because of the cantilever effect, the one at the end will pull it down a much more. Again, that one's slightly damaged, always thin out the damaged fruit. Twist that off, lever that off, and you see the branch has lifted a bit. I'm just going to lever that one off too. Okay, now that one, actually that's a bit epoxy. It's not an ideal apple. I'm going to take that off. Okay, that looks a bit radical, but we've still got a good number of fruits, about 1 every 4 inches, and they'll grow bigger and better for that. Here's another example. Just lever that off. With these short stalked apples, you can't very easily get in there to snip them, so I tend to roll or lever them off. I need to go over this again. In fact, this particular row I didn't get to. I did that row, I didn't do this row. You see what a crop this is carrying. These trees all got some dung the year before last, and it's really got into the ground and done them a lot of good. Anyway, just moving down through the orchard. Next variety is Sturma Pippin. This is an apple from East Anglia. And you see what heavy, just get a feel of that, the heaviness of the weight of fruit. This needs thinning. Tend to thin from below first, because the fruit below doesn't get so much sunlight, which is disadvantageous to it. Twist them off, roll them off, try and avoid breaking off the fruit bud for next year. Okay, down here we've got 2, we're better off with 1. And again, you see if I'd done that earlier, then the same weight of fruit would be in 1 rather than 2. Let's do a bigger apple. So it's best done a little bit earlier. This is Sunset, an old favourite. You see what's happened here, can't you? Our hated enemy, the rosy apple aphid, has infected this area, and as a result, these fruits are all small and they won't grow. So the only thing to do is to remove them completely. We started with about 20 fruits here. I want about 6. Please note I would normally be working with 2 hands doing this. Increasingly I'm tending to roll the fruit off, roll and twist the fruit off, because it's quicker. Now you see what I've done now, I've taken about 20 fruit down to just 2, which seems pretty radical, but I'll show you why I do that in a moment. I've already told you why I do it, but here we are. Okay, so what do we see here? What we see here is the result of not doing fruit thinning when it needs to be done. Great big broken branch. There's another one that's about to break. Look at the angle that's bent over at. So here we see a huge amount of fruit, a truly huge amount of fruit. This is a variety called Ellison's Orange, and it has a tendency to be biennial, give a big crop one year and nothing the next year. And because this wasn't thinned when it should have been, or it could have been supported, it snapped off. Now what I'll do with this, I'm not going to do it now. I'll come back here, I'll probably use the secateurs to sniff a few of these completely out, and I'll take the ones that are lower down. Where this is split, and this is now stable, this is going to stay there, and there is enough nourishment coming through that to ripen these fruits, and they will go into cider. There's probably the weight of fruit there, if I thin it out and what there ripens, it's probably about 8 kilograms there, enough to make half a gallon of cider. So what I'll do, I'll leave these branches here. I mean, they're on the ground now, so they're supporting their own weight. I may do a bit of fruit thinning to remove the very poor little fruits that really can't be bothered with, and the ones at the back under the cover won't get any light, and so that therefore they won't ripen very well, and we'll take those fruits, and then I'll be back in the winter. I'll make a saw cut probably here, take that clean out. So you see what I'm about. You see, again, that's just a very practical example of what happens when you need to fruit thin and you don't. If you've only got 1 or 2 trees in your garden and you're much more keen to maximise the crop, and you really want to put the time in, then you can cut some hazel forks, or some other stick, or indeed just take a straight, if you haven't got a stick with a fork in it, just put a straight stick and just tie your branch in. Here's another example, bent right over, carrying a really heavy weight. This in fact is touching the ground, so it's supporting itself there. This branch is not in a good place. Where it's on the ground, it means that we can't mow round here very easily. Well, we can mow round as well as we can within reason, and then I can take a scythe to finish that off. You get the feeling. Anyway, it's heavy crops here, some very heavy crops. A lot of branches are maybe going to snap. Hey, do you know, we're not so worried about this. Time passes. When we first started this orchard, we were in our mid-30s. We're now touching 60. I am 60. Julia will be 60, God willing, in a few weeks. We don't do the farmers markets anymore. We were losing money on them, and there wasn't the interest. Interest was falling off. People will say, "Oh, isn't it exciting that people are growing the wonderful old apple varieties?" But when push comes to shove, they want to buy nice, shiny, pink lady apples in the supermarket, and they don't want to pay much for them either. So that's the way it goes. This orchard is now developing more into a playground and an apple sanctuary, and a place where we can come with friends to have a good time, and also cider is produced. There's another thing you want to do, a bit of brown rot. Just remove that. Ideally, once you take it away and burn it, but we haven't got the energy, and I don't think you can stop it growing around anyway. This is one of the rare old varieties. There should be a label on it somewhere. There is a label on it. Can I read it though? It's got stuck behind that apple. I can't read the label without taking that apple off, and I don't really want to. But this is a rare old cooker. Oh, that's another label. Yeah, Reverend Wilkes. This is the Reverend Wilkes. Like many of the older apple varieties, it's named after a particular gentleman who presumably planted it in his garden, or discovered it, or maybe publicised it on somebody else's behalf. And you'll note here, this was a tree of another variety. I'm counting from the end. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this was. I think this was an Ellison's orange, but I can't remember for sure. It doesn't matter. But in pursuit of this mission of the orchard, we're now developing more as an apple sanctuary, and the main sort of creative thing that we do is send out the scion wood in February, which I plan to continue doing as long as I'm able, growing more varieties. So a saw cut was made there, and a rind graft. Can you see where a rind graft was made? And it seems to have grown away quite nicely. There, it's sort of healing up nicely round there. It's blending in quite well. I'm just going to snick that off there. But I think I will leave this one here, because if that carries on growing and hardens up, I can snick that off next February, and that will make a nice piece of scion wood, as will this and those. Nice bit of scion wood that I can send out, and it's been great fun sending wood out to up to about 15 different European countries. Yes, autumn pearmain. This is another one that was, I'm pretty sure it was grafted, or was it planted out as autumn pearmain? I can't remember. But in any event, that's labelled as autumn pearmain, and that's made some very nice, healthy growth there. Lots of nice scion wood. I'll have to check with Julie, but I can't see any graft points, so I guess we must have brought that in. The orchard seems to be taking on a life of its own in some ways. Anyway, I'll end the video there. I just wanted to basically take a little look around on towards the end of the first week of August, and the fruit thinning should have been done a month ago at least, and I've shown you some waste and some major broken branches because the fruit thinning wasn't done when it should have done. I'm not beating myself up about that, but I'm just showing you why fruit thinning is important. If you have a small garden and you have not got many trees and you want to absolutely maximise the production of them, you still may need to thin to avoid getting ridiculously small fruit. But if your tree is healthy enough, the leaves look good, it's making growth, it's carrying a big crop of fruit and you want it and you've got a use for it, then if you support the branches with hazel cleft sticks or other means, or post and wire or maypoling, that stick a big, we've done that in the past, it works, it's time consuming, which if you have two or three trees in a backyard garden, well, why not put the time in, put a big stake up in the centre, and then put a couple of nails in it, and from the nails suspend string and tie up the branches just so that to support them to stop the weight breaking off. That is the kind of technique that's used in modern mega productive orchards. Anyway, hope you all enjoy the rest of the summer.